starting Regis. I'm here with Regis Avanthay. He's the Senior Advisor from the Director's Office of OECD. So it's OECD. So he's going to be talking about OECD new project. They're launching a network of foundation. Can go, Regis.
Okay. So the OECD Development Center has traditionally been playing the role of bridging between OECD countries and emerging economies. So we have been doing that with several types of partners. Of course, public sector partners, but also private sector partners, transnational for example, civil society organization, universities, think tanks. So quite a number of partnerships that we have had involving a dialogue between OECD stakeholders and non-OECD stakeholders, which means mostly so-called emerging economies. And we realized in 2011 that whereas we were in a good position with many stakeholders, it was absolutely not the case with foundations, because mostly we had marginal relationship with foundations. So at this moment, since we were managing already 4 networks with private sector, with civil society, with public sector, we decided to, in addition, create another network, because we know how to manage network. We have practice of managing networks, of expanding them. So we said that it would be interesting to also have a network of foundation at the global level, for a very simple reason, is to get on global issues the voice of foundations. What do foundations think about, for example, the big issue of having economic growth, steady economic growth, whereas social cohesion, social inclusion is very much lacking. Sometimes you have both growth and growing inequalities. What is the position on foundation on such an issue? But also, what is the position of foundations on many economic and social issues? So basically, the OECD is interested in working with foundation at the global, and I would add at the regional level, because we want to get the position of foundations, the knowledge of foundations, and the recommendations at the policy level of foundations to convey those messages to the highest ministerial level, to the Secretary General of the OECD. So what is the main purpose of the network? Is to enable, it's to create a platform where OECD and foundations can exchange on major issues, which are on the one hand discussed in the publications of the OECD Development Center, which each year are the African Economic Outlook, the Latin America Economic Outlook, the Southeast Asia Economic Outlook, and the Perspective on Global Development. And on the other hand, to have papers, to have programs of work, to have ideas, documents, concepts which are brought by foundations, to share knowledge and to kind of all learn. So there is both the knowledge sharing and the peer learning dimension. We just started with the network last June with the first meeting which took place in Paris on June the 15th. And among founding members, we have at least one member from each continent. For example, in Brazil, we had the Instituto Ayrton Senna as a founding member. In Europe, we had, for example, Shell Foundation, we had Novartis Foundation from Switzerland, we had Bosch Foundation. In Africa, we had the GD Gerard Center for Philanthropy and Civic Engagement. We had from Asia, Western Asia, Gulf countries foundation like Qatar Foundation, Emirates Foundation, and we had US foundations such as Pearson and such as Ford, although Ford has not confirmed yet that they want to become member, but that should or that might come soon. So we have now something like 14 members and associates. Associates are institutions providing services to foundations, like precisely Wings, like the Foundation Center in New York, that decided to become associate because they are not themselves foundations, but they can also support the development of the network, which is extremely useful. What would you like to achieve? Well, the overall goal of a network for us is that we want the network to contribute to the policy influencing process. So we have the voice of the foundation like we have the voice of transnational in other cases. So the final aim is to influence policies. But also I think that we want to achieve some goals which matter for foundations. And for example, foundations said they want really to discuss issues of how to better coordinate between themselves their endeavor, how to better coordinate the work they do with other stakeholders. So in other words, how they can become more relevant by improving the interaction they have with other stakeholders. Another issue that foundations are eager to achieve is how they can move from a kind of traditional concept of charity, philanthropy-based approach towards a more professional type of approach related to development. Some foundations talk about, for example, venture philanthropy. So how this change can be taking place, can be accompanied by the network. And last but not least, foundations are quite eager to improve their effectiveness, to improve their impact, to make the best use of the resources they have. So they want also to explore how they can go about issues of effectiveness, of efficiency, to have a greater impact in terms of development processes, in terms of transforming the structures of given economies. The major benefits, what can we expect? So the major benefit first will be that foundations that are maybe not meeting that much each other, let's say for example foundations from India, Southeast Asia, Latin America, Africa, will get access to certain knowledge. So the first benefit is just the access. The second is the knowledge sharing, because this network is an informal network and we apply Chatham House rules, so we want to have lively exchanges. We are not promoting a culture of statements, on the contrary, lively discussions. So knowledge sharing, but also knowledge sharing in the sense that presentations which might be made on best practices or on failures must be challenged. Then some foundations also expressed the possible interest to kind of identify areas or issues on which they could jointly work. And then, of course, I suppose that for some foundation, the access to OECD work, OECD statistics, OECD documents, OECD experts can be an expected benefit. So that's basically what I can say at this very early stage of the foundation, the Global Foundation Network. The next meeting will take place early October, as far as I know, on October 2nd. It will be back-to-back with a big annual event, which is the Africa Economic Forum. And of course, that will enable members of the network of foundations to participate in the Africa Forum, but that will also enable us to attract some ministers, some important stakeholders that may come partly during the meeting to possibly speak in a session. And usually this type of meeting of the network taking place during the same week of a major event, we will repeat that normally twice a year, once with the Africa Forum, once with the Latin America Forum. And other meetings should take place out of Paris according to the initiatives that members of the network can take, making proposal of decentralized meetings on given priority themes.
Thank you.